Okay, this is going to be in English. Remember the times when all the talks were in English? Well, I'm old school. Okay, server-side apps. I'm going to talk, this is ReactNext, and I'm going to talk about a real alternative to React. I'm old. A developer always was, always will be, probably will die. One on the tombstone was a developer. I work at Microsoft. Most of my team is here, thank you. And I work on a product called Cousteau. It's like Splunk, but much better. I want to talk about sheep. Raise the volume, please. I use React at work. I am a sheep. There we go. Who uses React here? You are all sheep. We are all sheep. Anybody use Vue? Dima, where are they go? There we go, we have Vue. Does anybody use Svelte? There we go. Quick, nobody uses Quick. Right. Vue, Angular. There we go. You are all sheep. We are all sheep. And this is me in 2014 when I was young and beautiful, thinking how wonderful React is. I had just read this article, and it's a really amazing article. You should look it up. It explains React. Back in the days when nobody used React and React needed explaining, amazing, amazing, amazing article. And I loved it so much, I preached it for 10 years. Lots and lots of talks about React, about testing React, about whatever React. 10 years of preaching React without really coding in it. I was a back-end developer all the time. Nobody knows. I mean, people at Microsoft were like, what, you never coded front-end before? I said, no, I was always a back-end. And so I joined Microsoft 2024 until now. This is my tag. And joined a team that built a really nice React app. The Cousteau Web Explorer. There we go. And this was the first time I used React. The application is huge. It has a lot of functionality, a lot of that. And because of that, it is heavy to download. We're talking about 10 to 14 megs of code here. Hard to optimize the bundle, hard to maintain these optimizations, very, very slow to test. The development velocity is crippled, well, not crippled, but hampered by very slow tests. And because of React, synchronizing server and local state is always a problem. You know we know that. React query helps, but isn't foolproof. And the build configuration, we use Vite now, is complicated. 100 to 1,200 lines of complicated configuration. I was always proud of understanding it. Now I'm using AI to do it, and I'm not proud anymore. This is very, very complicated stuff. And is this true only for React? No. It is true for all client-side frameworks, all these problems. I want to talk about my partner, Carmel, one of the loves of my life. She does online courses. You can go and talk to her about that. And I wanted to build her a courses system that tracks students, courses, sales, etc., etc. But with what? Front-end framework. I want it to be fast, simple, and really, really nice to build. So for me, it was a no-go for client-side frameworks. I did not want to be sheep. So I built it. I built it without using any of these frameworks, and basically this talk is about how I built it without using any of these frameworks and what alternative I wanted to build. I built it with basically less than 1K of front-end JavaScript, and that is possible. And I want to show you a little bit of this app. Hopefully it'll even work. There we go. So we have students, sales. By the way, this is real data, but I anonymized all the names, obviously, so that I can show them. Notice I can do Parker, so I get very fast search. I can do infinite scroll. I have dialog buttons. I do a sale here, and I search for Parker. And I get a list, and I do choose. All this is almost zero client-side JavaScript. Almost zero client-side JavaScript. It's still amazing. So let's see how I did it. So, but we won't use Carmel's project. We'll use to-do MVC, the infamous to-do list, but we'll do it not with little JavaScript, with no JavaScript. Let's start with a server-side app that has no JavaScript whatsoever. And I'll show you it very quickly. So to-dos, I can add a to-do. I can check a to-do. I can filter. I can clear the completed. And I can edit with some client-side validations. And we're done. That's the app. Let's see the first page, the to-do app. Let's see how this works. This is easy. Remember how browsers work? You know, client-side frameworks made us forget it. They get up when you write a URL in the address bar. They do a get to the server, and the server responds with the HTML. So let's look at the server code. I use Fastify because who uses Fast today? And if the browser asks for /, I go and get the to-do list, and then I render the to-do list as HTML. We'll see how in a second. And of course, I listen on port 3000, and we're good. So let's look at render to-do MVC. I rendered, this is how I do the body. We'll see that in a second. The head is the regular head, and I return a string with the head and the body. Server-side rendering, we'll see in a second that there's no client-side stuff. It's just server-side rendering. Let's look at the form, the input form with a new to-do. This is what is called the HTML tag. It uses two libraries, HTML and VHTML. Basically, it looks like JSX. You have these dollar things, and it renders HTML as a string, but it's really, really nice to use, very, very similar to JSX. So I have an input, the text input for the what needs to be done, the new to-do. The to-dos themselves, again, I map over all the to-dos. This is one to-do. It's an LI, and it has a label. It has the checkbox, and it has the remove button. Classic HTML. The filters are just links with query filter equals whatever, active, completed, etc. So how does this work? Let's start with the link. This is the link the user clicks. When the user clicks the link, the browser, again, asks for the page, but with filter equals active. The browser gets the filter from the query parameter, lists the to-dos, but with the filter, so it gets back only the active items, and renders them. Very simple. Gets back the HTML, and we're done. This is no client-side routing, no nothing. It's just how browsers work. And it's fast. Look, people, we were told that rendering the whole page every time is slow, that round-trip rendering is slow. People, we were lied to. We are sheep. We were lied to. You saw in my in to-do MVC and in Carmel's application, it just works and it is fast because browsers today are very, very fast machines at rendering. That was not true 10 or 20 years ago. We saw how the filter links works. How does the new to-do work? That's more interesting because it does something. It's not just a link. So the new to-do input is a regular input, a text input, wrapped in a form. And you know what happens when you press enter on a form? It submits the form as a post. So when the user presses enter, the form is posted to /new. This is how browsers work. There's no client-side framework here. This is just how browsers work. But it also adds the title in the post body. So it's posting the form, post/new, with the title in the body. The app receives the post, gets the title, request.body.title, creates the to-do, and then does something interesting. It redirects to slash. What is in slash? The to-do list. So now, after pressing enter, I create a to-do, redirect, the browser redirects to slash, and I see the new to-do list. This is the post/redirect pattern. You post, you do something, and redirect so that the rendering happens. And you saw that. That is fast. You don't notice the page changes. A lot of this is because I'm using view transitions, which is a new CSS HTML feature, but it doesn't, even if I didn't use it, you would not see the difference. Okay. So we've redirected to slash, but we've lost the filter. If the filter was an active filter, when I redirected to slash, I've lost the filter, and now I see all the to-dos. That is not what we want. We want to keep the filter. So what we do is in the form, we add a hidden field with the current filter. Now when I'm posting it with the filter so that when I redirect, I can redirect back with the filter. This is the posting a form with the hidden filter form, and it's fast. We were told we are sheep. This is the same technique for the to-do delete. This is the same technique for the toggle button, form post, do the action, redirect back to the to-do list. State management for clients, for server-side frameworks, server-side state is just the state is stored in the server, in the database, and rendered there. And client-side state, we use a combination of hidden fields and query parameters to store the state. What about edit item? We'll do it quickly. It's just a link to another page. Rendering the page is very similar. I get the to-do, render the item. I'll skip the rendering code, but it's the usual one. And when I click on the Save button, it submits the form. Again, I do the regular post and redirect. The server code is post/item/. So when the client posts the changes, it posts them along with all the form, the title, the notes, and the completed. So I get that information. I update the to-do, and again, I redirect back to slash to see all the to-dos back again. Very, very simple. Preserving filter state left as an exercise to the reader. What about form validation? As you can see, if the node is not empty, it has to be at least 4 characters. How do I do that? Remember the update code? If I need to add some validation here before I do the update, I'll zoom in. If the node is too small, what I do is I don't redirect, but I re-render the page, but this time with errors. When I render it with errors. This is the error of the notes, and here I add the errors so that when the user clicks something, I re-render the page, but this time I see the error next to the input field. Okay, now let's go to server-side apps, the real thing. Because up until now, it's nice and fun, but there are still problems. First of all, focus state. Notice when I click on the to-do, the new to-do gets the focus every time I click. If you can see it, boom, when I click, it goes back. Why? Because it's re-rendering the whole page, and when it's re-rendering the whole page, the input has an autofocus on it, so it gets back the focus. That's not really nice. Still a tad bit slow. I wish I didn't need to re-render the whole page, have the browser re-rendering the whole page. And the edit item, I wish it was a dialogue and not on a different page. I want more interactivity, like I showed in Carmel's app. So let's add a server-side framework. For this, we need a server-side framework. There are a lot of them. HTMX, Unpoly, and Hotwire Turbo are the ones that I know, and I think they are the most popular, but I'm not sure. I'm going to use HTMX because that is what I used. Let's see how the toggle works in HTMX. So when I click on, oh, wait, let's see how the toggle works in React, okay, in regular client-side frameworks. When I click on the toggle, we have an on-click there, and what we do, let's ignore the use effect and all that React stuff. What it does is it uses fetch to post and update the toggle. The server toggles the to-do, just like, and returns a 200 OK. Once the 200 OK is done, we set state, we do use state, set state, and all that, and we re-render the item so that its toggle state will still there. And we use reconciliation for that, the VDOM, diff, and all that stuff that we've heard about so many times. No round trip. We have the focus stability, no autofocus problem, and it's very, very fast. Or so we've been told. And now for HTMX. Very, very similar, but you'll see it's very, very different. When I click on the toggle, again, and we'll see how, I'm going to use fetch to tell the server to toggle the item. Same stuff. The server toggles the to-do, but responds with the whole page. It returns the whole HTML. Very, very simple. But I don't re-render the whole thing. I use the framework to only replace a specific part, which is the items container, or the specific item. Why do I replace the items container? With reconciliation, because this framework knows how to do reconciliation just like React does. By the way, why not replace just the item? Why do I replace all the items in the page? Because of the filter. Because of the filter, for example, if the item is not active, if I'm showing only the active items and the filter toggle, and when I toggle it to be inactive, I should hide everything. So the easiest thing to do is to render the whole to-do list. Notice that the server code doesn't change from the previous code where we didn't use a server-side framework. It's still post, to-do, return the whole HTML. The server code doesn't change at all. It's the same server code we used when we didn't use a server-side framework. But how does the front end do this? How do I make it do the fetch and the reconciliation and the replace, etc.? Okay, first of all, when I click on the checkbox, I make the form submit. So I do a little bit of JavaScript, which says the closest form, please submit the form. The regular one is I just do a usual post. We're not using a server-side framework. I just do the usual post, and it posts and it replaces the page. But with HTMX, instead of posting, I do instead of action equals post, I do HX post. The server-side framework notices the HXs and adds all the handlers it needs on that item. So I'm telling it post to /toggle/the ID. So this is what makes it do the post. And I tell it, when you get back the HTML, replace not the whole page, replace only the items container. That's the target. And don't take the whole page and put it in the items container. Only take the items container from what you responded, what you got, and put it in the to-do items container. And of course, I need to add a script source for HTMX itself. That is basically the biggest piece of JavaScript I need. It's what reacts and does all that things with the HX tags. It's about 50K, 70K gzipped. That's it. That is the size of the thing. Its last release, I checked, was June 2025, and it's not because it's maintained. It's very much maintained. It's because there's nothing to do. It doesn't have a lot of functionality in it, and it's mostly complete. There will be a beta coming in 2027 because the author wants to modernize the code base or whatever, but it's basically feature complete. They're not changing anything. And it solved the focus problem because I'm not touching the new to-do, I'm touching the whole list. What about a real dialog? Do I have time? Yes. What about a real dialog for edit item? Let's see how this works. How do I pop up a real dialog and not replace the page? So the link, instead of just linking to a new page, I do an HX get. And HX get means please fetch using get the item, the HTML of the item, and when you get back the HTML of the item, replace this div, which is an empty div, so I get the container, so I get the dialog inside this div. Obviously, it's absolutely positioned or whatever, so I see it popping up nicely. The dialog itself, I'm not returning a whole page, I'm just returning the dialog, so I'm using the dialog element. HTML is wonderful, the dialog handles so much stuff for me, I don't need to do anything, it just works. And when you click on save, I'm not posting the regular way, I'm doing an HX post to the page, and I'm replacing the to-do list container as usual. And the server code, again, does not change. I update the to-do using the form information, and I redirect back to the to-dos container. But it doesn't really redirect. HTMX gets the fetches, sees the redirect, does the redirect, gets the whole HTML, and then targets only the to-do list container to replace the to-dos. What about validation? Remember, if the notes is too small, what I do is, again, I return HTML with the errors, just like before. But there's a slight problem. The target is the to-do list container. So if I return the form, it will replace the to-do list container, and that is not what I want. I want it to continue replacing the dialog. So I add an ID to the form, and I reply with a header which tells HTMX, change the target and the select of the form, so now it replaces the form. Filter, page state, still works with hidden fields. Now, the view code is horrible. It's this long. It's all the HTML of the to-dos. This is not maintainable. So the HTML template tags has a component capability. You can see it here, very, very similar to React. So you have a function, to-do list, which accepts those things. It knows what to do to make this whole thing works, and it obviously goes down and down and down. So when you're rendering the server-side code, you just do it React style. Very, very similar. Nothing to learn here. There is a lot to learn about HTMX. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I glossed over a lot of fine details, which I did not explain here. This is really, really the tip of the iceberg of HTMX. But the question is, why? Why not use React? Besides the sheep. We don't care about sheep. First of all is size. Client-side apps that use client-side frameworks like React or Vue are huge. We've seen it in Cousteau. 10 to 14 megs of downloads. And every time one of these wonderful people on my team add a feature, I cringe. Because adding a feature means adding code. And after a while, the bundle becomes larger and larger and larger and larger. And our AI velocity is making it even larger and larger, much faster. Each feature adds to the bundle size, and optimizing that becomes a problem. It's a constant pain. Server-side apps, on the other hand, are minuscule. There's the 17K gzipped HTMX and about 1K of client-side JavaScript overall for a big app. All code is in the server. Each client-side code is constant, basically constant. Adding features, using AI or not, does not mean adding client-side code. It means adding server-side code, and I don't care about server-side code. What about performance? How much do you think I got for To-Do MVC or to Carmel's app in Lighthouse? And I did not even try. No optimizations, no nothing. I just get 100 just by using a server-side framework. Think of the amount of work you're doing, handling bundle size and re-rendering performance, whatnot, and dealing with all that. Here I just get 100 for free. And why is that? Because I'm using the browser the way it was meant to, and not sidestepping the browser with client-side routing and client-side rendering and client-side everything. Complexity, build time, no bundling, TypeScript native, Node.js works with TypeScript, so I don't need to transpile. No HMR complexity, just use -- watch on Node, and every time your code changes, boom, the server restarts. Code complexity, no hooks, use effect, use state, all that. There is complexity on the HTMX side, I'm not saying, but it's different. Simpler state, that's definitely true. And for me, it's a more intuitive model. I thought React was simple, and then I joined a real React program, and I saw that nothing is ever simple. Just yesterday, we had to struggle with, oh God, don't even ask. Yeah. Language. On the server, no one can hear you use Rust, or Java, or Haskell, or Python. I love Elixir. You don't need to use JavaScript. Here's Rust. I asked the AI to translate the app from TypeScript to Rust. Boom, it translated it to Rust, works fine. Zero, because everything is on the server. Okay, there are downsides. You're on your own. People, you are on your own here. Nobody can help you. There's no HTMX next. Not a lot of best practices, no meta frameworks. Learn on the fly, a lot to learn, a lot to unlearn, how not to do things. It's not as trivial as I showed it to be. You know, every framework comes with a complexity. It's always true. I'm not saying. I skipped a lot of ugly details. Playwright doesn't like HTMX. It doesn't play well with how HTMX works. I had to write these little utilities. Small thing. And I would not write Gmail with it. Okay? I would not write Google Maps with it. I would not write local first apps with it. Okay? Definitely not. If you have lots and lots of interactivity, use client-side frameworks. But most apps are not like that. Let's finish. The browser is awesome. HTML is awesome, CSS is awesome. Round trips through the server where the server does all the work. That is awesome. And it is fast. I loved writing the app, and I'm still writing it as a server-side app. And we were told that rendering the whole page every time is slow. We were told that round-trip rendering is slow. Let's use client-side routing. We were lied to. You don't have to use all these if you don't want in the next server. Maybe it's time, all us sheep, try something else. Maybe it's time to try server-side apps. Be wolves, people. Thank you very much.